This season on My Beautiful Game.
Beautiful to see.
Crazy gang that just beat a culture club.
Like nothing I've ever seen before.
I got my studs caught.
Greater than anything we've ever seen.
Makes you jump up.
It's one of the greatest goals of all time. It was epic.
Incredible.
Brilliant goal. It pumps me up every time I see it.
I get goosebumps thinking about it.
The greatest goal I think I've ever seen between two teams that I absolutely hate was Wayne Rooney's bicycle kick against Manchester City in February 2011.
Derby results between Manchester United and Manchester City have been dominated by United. They are known to be hard-tackling, ferocious games, with one player almost losing his leg back in the 70s. Wayne Rooney became the world's most expensive teenage footballer when he joined United for over $40 million. At international level, Rooney holds the record for the youngest player to score for England.
When I saw this goal, I was actually lying in bed. I mean, what happens is the soccer, as it's called here in America, came on at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I just lay there and was forced to watch two teams I disliked. But because I am a football-starved Brit in a country that only allows you to see so many games, I had to watch this game. It was a particularly interesting game because the entire championship, league championship, could have been thrown open. A lot of pressure on. Nani scored the first goal. Not a particularly great goal. Rooney passed it to him, he just knocked it into the back of the net. Then Silva, who was playing absolutely brilliantly for Manchester City this day, David Silva, actually scored a great goal. But then came this absolute wonder goal from Rooney. The pass came over from Nani, and Rooney took off, and he took off and did the most incredible bicycle kick backwards that you just watched in slow motion. And the ball went in slow motion at 100 miles an hour, straight past Hart into the net. 2-1. That's how the game finished. But he stood there at the end of this looking like something on Sugarloaf Mountain, arms outstretched and just taking in the applause. It was a fantastic moment for Rooney and a wonderful moment for Manchester United, who then went on to win the league after that. And something that I will always remember. And not, as I say, something I enjoyed, because I hate Manchester United. It's just a great feeling. It makes you jump up, even when you're lying in bed. One of the greatest goals I've ever seen. Remarkable and annoying.
Scholes. Nani. Rooney! Oh, wonderful! What a goal!
Hi, I'm Tim Howard, and the greatest goal I've ever seen was Roberto Carlos in Le Tournoi.
Brazil are the most successful national team in world soccer. They have won the World Cup an astonishing 5 times and are without doubt the team every nation aspires to beat. Roberto Carlos has the second highest appearance record for Brazil with 125 games. At club level, he played 11 seasons with Real Madrid, winning La Liga 4 times and the Champions League 3.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, I've had the chance to play Brazil quite a few times. More often than not, ended up on the losing end. But the one thing that's so special about them is they enjoy playing their football. You know, I think it's a cliche. You know, people say go out and enjoy your football, but they really, truly do. They have a good time over the course of 90 minutes, and they try. One of the reasons we see so many great goals, so many beautiful goals from them, is because they try to do those things that normal players and teams wouldn't dare to do. Almost embarrass you if you like. Well, Roberto Carlos, he played on some mighty Brazil team. About to late 90s and into 2000. Played for Real Madrid as well, and at the time was clearly the best left back in the world. Barthez, at that time, was considered the best goalkeeper in the world. And even though the free kick was given pretty far out, at 30, 35 yards out, which is a long way, nearly central, he's still given him enough respect by putting 4 people in the wall. So he knew what was coming. He knew what Roberto Carlos was capable of, and yet he does it anyway. And that's what's so magnificent about him. At first glance, you think he couldn't have tried to do that, but he has, clearly. And I think the more you see the goal, his approach, he's clearly tried to bend the ball the outside of his foot around the wall, outside the post, and bring it back in. And it's quite a skill. With the inside of your foot is easy to do, but with the outside of your foot to have that control is incredible, and that power. It's very difficult now for goalkeepers because I think the balls are designed to move and to dance in the air and to kind of do a whole bunch of funky things, and it's exciting to watch as a spectator, because you want to see goals and you want to see flashy plays, and that doesn't really bode well for us goalkeepers. But on that particular play or goal, I don't think the ball was going to matter too much. He knew what he was doing, and he meant it, and he hit it with venom, and he hit it with the right curve, and again, it was very impressive. Why is it the greatest goal? I just think it's because he hits the ball, the free kick, with so much audacity. Arguably one of the best ever.
We'd had a great season at Arsenal.
Nearly got myself beaten up a couple of times by Arsenal fans.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Conrad, number 12 for Chivas USA and number 1 in your hearts. And my favorite goal is Eric Cantona's chip in 1996 against Sunderland.
Manchester United are one of the wealthiest clubs in the world, and they're one of the richest in history too, as United were founded shortly after the American Civil War. King Eric played 185 times for United, scoring 82 goals. Many fans believe he was the catalyst for the Manchester United dominance that still exists today. Cantona is also remembered for his crazy kung fu kick into the crowd after he was sent off in a game.
Well, I know that Wayne Rooney just scored an amazing goal to kind of break out of his slump and to get the press off of him against Manchester City. It was a big rivalry. And so the cross comes in, and he just has an instinctual play. He sees the ball, he does a nice bicycle kick, goes up or V. They end up winning the game-winning goal. And I get that. I understand that that's an impressive goal. But something about Cantona's goal was different. Initially, he holds the ball up under pressure, picks it up in midfield. The pressure ends up dropping off, and he understands that, can sense it, turns, takes the space now that the defense has given him, looks to combine.
To create space.
Plays, he keeps moving. There's a lot of kids today that when they make a good pass, they'll just kind of stop. But he continues to play it, move, runs past 2 people.
Weave past a couple of defenders. McClair.
Kind of holds one guy off, gets it back, picks his head up, sees where the goalie is.
Here's Cantona.
He hits the ball, goes over, hits the upper V, goes in, and he just stands there. Doesn't celebrate, doesn't run off. It was almost like it was expected for him to be that good. There's so many elements to that goal that it's hard to pick out one thing, but if anything, it's just how he breaks it down. He makes it more of a chess match. It's less about being an athlete or anything else. It's how can I take advantage of what this team is giving me, and he did it to the utmost.
That is magnificent by Cantona.
I've always been in awe of Eric Cantona. I think he's an amazing player. To be able to walk out there with that confidence, to have your collar popped up, it's borderline arrogance. And I just didn't really know as a player, or as a young player when I was 15 or 16 watching this, where he got that from. You know, is that just self-made? How does he get on the field and make that happen? And so that was always something I marveled at. Cantona was just something different. He found the easiest solution to score a goal at that moment. And he beat 5 or 6 guys to do it. And he just stood there and said, I'm great and you're not. And I thought, that guy is awesome. I want to be that guy. And so we don't have collars on our jerseys here in Major League Soccer, but we did for one season, and I tried to pop it up as much as I could in honor of Eric Cantona. No, I think it's a goal that kids should watch because I could watch it over and over and over again, and it pumps me up every time I see it.
How to create space and then weave past a couple of defenders. McClair, here's Cantona! He's done it!
I'm Gary Lineker, and the greatest goal of all time, in my opinion, was Diego Maradona's against England in the '86 World Cup in Mexico. The second one, not the one he punched in.
The games between Argentina and England are always filled with notable and controversial moments. From the epic game in '86 to Owen's solo goal and Beckham's red card. They are games all soccer fans love to watch. Diego Maradona is arguably the greatest soccer player to ever live. He played 91 times for Argentina, scoring 34 goals. He scored both of Argentina's goals in this game before England pulled one back with a goal from Gary Lineker.
Oh, Diego was head and shoulders smaller than most players, but he was head and shoulders above them in terms of being a footballer. He was by far the best player of my generation. He was unbelievable. He had this great presence as well, and, you know, great aura that, you know, other footballers felt in awe of him. We went into the game against Argentina with confidence quite high, actually, because despite a bad start in the World Cup, and we were under pressure to qualify, we managed to beat Poland by 3-0, and fortunately I got a hat-trick in that one, and then I got 2 more against Paraguay in the last 16, and we won that one 3-0 as well. So we went into the game with quite a lot of confidence, but we all knew what Argentina were, and we all knew they were a very strong side, with obviously a genius player. He had unbelievable skills, and he was obviously the man that we had to try and stop, and we failed miserably. Well, in all honesty, I think Argentina were probably the better side throughout. Certainly the first hour, and it was not too many chances. And I suppose the turning point had to be the hand of God goal. I didn't really have a very good view of it, but it was quite clear from the reaction of people like Peter Shilton and Terry Butcher that Diego had handled it and punched it in. So officials should have spotted it. Not quite sure how they didn't, but he did it very cleverly. So, you know, Argentina were ahead, then they confidence, and from that, then Diego scored for me the greatest goal of all time. He picked it up pretty much on the halfway line. Now, to describe the difficulty of this goal, I have to tell you what the pitch was like. It was awful in the Aztec, which you don't expect. You wait your whole life to play in a World Cup, and for me, I was 25 years old, same age as Diego, but I think, right, this is the World Cup, we've finally arrived, the stadium's full, over 100,000 people, it was incredible, but the pitch was like a field. Something had obviously happened to it, so they had squares of turf all over the field, small squares, that every time you put your foot on it, the whole thing would slide away, and it was hard enough just to stand up, let alone do anything with the ball. And because of the quality of the pitch, that's what makes Diego's goal actually impossible, because he did this incredible turn on the halfway line where he skipped away from a couple of players.
Maradona turns like a little eel, little squat man.
Peter Reid was chasing him out of breath.
Comes inside Butcher, leaves it for dead.
Went past Butcher and then scored it.
And that is why Maradona's the greatest player in the world.
It's the one time in my life when I've played in a game of supreme importance where I felt like applauding a member of the opposition.
Maradona turns like a little eel and comes away from trouble. Little squat man comes inside Butcher, leaves him for dead. Outside Fennick leaves him for dead and puts the ball away. And that is why Maradona's the greatest player in the world.
The greatest goal I ever saw was Paul Gascoigne, Al Gaza, scoring a 50-yard free kick against Arsenal in 1991.
Tottenham and Arsenal play out the North London Derby, and this game was the first time they had met in an FA Cup semi-final. Tottenham won the game 3-1 with Paul Gascoigne scoring this free kick and Gary Lineker adding 2 more for Spurs. Paul Gascoigne, commonly known as Gaza, began his career at Newcastle United before moving south to Tottenham. He played 57 times for England, scoring 10 goals.
I think the one that I remember the most, and I think it's probably my favourite, was Gaza, or Paul Gascoigne to the uninitiated. Gaza scoring against Arsenal in 1991, free kick.
Got a free kick early on. It was a long way out, I remember.
From at least 50 yards out. I'm a true fan. I mean, I'm a die-hard 35-year Tottenham fan. As a Spurs fan, you have to stop Arsenal winning as much as possible. So, OK, they've already won the league. We have to stop them winning the FA Cup.
We'd had a great season at Arsenal. You know, we'd won the league.
We went into that game as big underdogs, really.
We'd let 18 goals in all season.
The FA Cup is probably, after winning the league, the second most important thing to win in the UK. I think for a Spurs fan, it holds extra special meaning because we were the first team to win the double in 1961. So to beat them in the semi-final was, for us, actually almost as good as winning the cup.
We turned up for that semi-final, and you know, I always say it's the semi-final that I turned up for I'd ever played in.
So it was a free kick.
We knew what Paul was capable of.
It was pretty much halfway between the penalty box and the halfway line.
We knew it was really wound up for that game.
Before he hits it, I run all the way out and have a little word with him. I said to him, forget that bending stuff. I said, just whack him.
He took the free kick, it went over everybody.
Well, he whacked it and he bent it.
And went into the top right-hand corner. Seaman got his fingers to it, couldn't stop it, was going too hard.
And I still say it to this day, and I've told him 1,000 times because he always reminds me about it. I got my studs caught in your turf, that's why I didn't get there.
It tops my list because it had to be against Arsenal. Brilliant goal.
Is Gascoigne going to have a crack? He is, you know. Oh,
Being flamboyant, booze, women, and fast cars.
Such a difficult debate.
It's tough to pick a great goal, but the one I went with that stuck out in my mind, George Best, playing in the NASL back in 1981 with San Jose.
The North American Soccer League operated from 1968 to 1984 and starred soccer legends Pelé, Franz Beckenbauer, and the great George Best. Best was the first true celebrity soccer player whose fame off the field matched his fame on it. He played for Manchester United 470 times, scoring 179 goals before retiring at the tender age of 27.
George Best, he was a little bit before my time, but you know, I'm a student of the game and I love the history, and George Best was easily one of the greatest goal scorers, and I think overlooked when you bring up conversations of Pelé and Messi and all these modern day greats. George Best was it. He was those guys back in the day. Playing in Europe when being flamboyant and being the playboy goal scorer wasn't cool. You know, it was the school of hard knocks and getting stuck in. Bestie changed that. I mean, he made goal scoring cool. And he was definitely a shock to the system over there for sure. He was this playboy on the field, but also unfortunately off the field. Everybody knows, you know, his loves were soccer, booze, and ladies. I mean, he had a great quote one time where he said, "I spent 90% of my money on booze, women, and fast cars. The other 10%, I wasted." So that just tells you a little something about the man. So kickoff, Bestie's right there. He lays the ball off to the right side, and then he starts a slow run. And this is one of the subtle genius. If you watch the play, Best takes off, change of pace, but then stops and pulls back to get the ball back. So he created the space between the defender, gets the ball back, and then he starts what I think is the greatest goal ever, and that's where he takes a guy on at the top of the 18, beats him as there's a slide tackle, and then there's two guys in front of him, and he has to beat both of those guys. Takes the first guy on, cuts back to his right, the other defender comes up, he splits the two, and then takes on the goalie, and then calmly puts it in the back of the net.
Best maneuvering unbelievably. Best still has it. I don't believe this move.
That's the greatest soccer goal I've ever seen.
Most guys would have just freaked out at any point and took a shot or whatever. He was just so calm, and the ball it seemed like it's part of his foot.
That is the greatest soccer goal I've ever seen. Julie, man.
Look at today. These are worldwide stars. George Best didn't have that. And he didn't even have the platform of the World Cup, which Pelé did, and Maradona and all these guys. You know, it was really, he was South American flair before the South Americans were even doing it. I mean, he had that in Europe. That was half of the best. And it was still greater than anything we've ever seen.
That's tough to stop, the damn brakes, and boy, it's tough to control. Best maneuvering unbelievably. Best still has it. I don't believe this move. That's the greatest soccer goal I've ever seen.
I'm Vinnie Jones, and I would say my best goal I've ever seen, Glenn Hoddle 1979 against Manchester United in the League Cup. Hoddle, Ardiles to Hoddle, volley, Gary Bailey, sucking flies.
Tottenham Hotspurs were considered the glamour team of the 1960s. They were the first club in the 20th century to win the English League and Cup double, back in 1961. Glenn Hoddle was an attacking midfielder who spent most of his career at Tottenham. He had sublime balance, incredible vision, and was one of his generation's greatest passers of the ball.
You know, I thought about it for a long time, because obviously there's some unbelievable goals. You know, the Maradona goal against England, you know, the Rooney goal. But for me, being a Tottenham supporter, I can remember in 1979, my idol, you know, somebody I watched and loved, was Glenn Hoddle, and there was a free kick against Man United midway in the Man United half, gets played in to Hoddle.
Trying Ronaldo as well forward.
Who literally sidesteps it inside and spins to Ardiles. Ardiles gives a little pitching wedge back to him, and it's like quite high, and he somehow gets up and side foots it, and it like just completely goes over and down into the corner. It like looks like it's going out, and then it dips down at the last minute, and Gary Bailey just stood there like swallowing flies. I think that was a League Cup in '79, and then Spurs won that and went to Old Trafford and lost 3-1. But that whole tie was about Glenn Hoddle's goal. You know, for me, probably one of the best goals I've ever seen.
There's Hoddle. There's Ardiles. There's Hoddle! Oh, smashing! Oh, it's a brilliant goal!
Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo? This is a really tough question.
Messi or Ronaldo? That's not even a choice.
I think I would have to go with Messi.
Messi, I think, has come through the ranks, has got better and better. He's now classed as the world's greatest footballer. But for me, Ronaldo, for his passion.
Ronaldo wouldn't be, I don't think he'd be in my top 5, especially if you went all time. But even right now, I mean, Messi, he is the greatest player in the world, greatest player on the planet right now, hands down.
I'm a Messi man. His magnificent skill just edges it over Ronaldo.
It's not even a question. For me, Messi's the best player in the world, much better than Cristiano Ronaldo. Messi.
I'd have to pick him, only because you know, his skills are like nothing I've ever seen before. But having said that, it's such a difficult debate.
Me, honestly, watching the other day, Messi was one of the best performances I've seen from a footballer since, you know, the World Cup with Maradona even. I think she was there though.